This podcast is the second in a series on positive psychology. Positive psychology is the idea of how people who are normal, functional, capable are able to do even better in their lives than they have been to date. How they're able to flourish, how they're able to improve their abilities, how they're able to become more functional and more efficacious in doing those things that they want to do in their lives. A part of flourishing is the idea of competency, that people are competent to do those things that they choose to do in their lives. Dr. Stephen Covey, a psychologist and university professor, wrote some time ago a very helpful book entitled The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Dr. Covey looks at what it is that makes some people more effective in the business of living life than other people. There are people who are able to accomplish great things in their lives. There are other people who, for a variety of reasons, are simply not terribly productive, nor are they able to achieve their own goals, whatever those might be. Dr. Covey, in his book, discusses 7 habits that he has identified as correlating with a high level of effectiveness in people who are able to accomplish in their lives remarkable things, or able to accomplish in their lives those things that they choose to do and that other people recognize as being highly important. He points out in the opening chapters of his book that these are not about tricks. These are not about some, neat tools that you can use to accomplish some things that you want to accomplish, but rather about life-changing principles that are deeply built into a person's character. This is about ethics more than anything else. It's about who a person is. It's about what this person's character is formed to be. The first of these 7 habits is called being proactive. It's founded on the idea that a stimulus produces a certain kind of response. Somebody sees something and they respond to it with fear. Or somebody says something and we respond to it with a certain kind of emotion. Covey recognizes that human beings are able to choose a response, that there is a gap between the stimulus and the response in which a human being is able to make a choice that modifies the way that they will respond. Somebody says something cutting, the natural thing to do is to respond with anger, and yet a person can stop in that moment between stimulus and response and can think about this and ask the question, did he really mean to be cutting? Did I perhaps misunderstand this? Is there a better way to respond than in kind? And it is this characteristic of shaping the response by choice that enables a person to do things differently. We are not necessarily reactive beings. It is possible for human beings to be proactive. We can choose how we will respond, and our proactive choices can be values-driven and purpose and mission-driven. We are not simply programmed beings who must always respond in a certain way when somebody jerks our chain. That's the foundation not only of effective habit number 1, but of all of the habits, because as Covey postulates, it is possible for us to become different people. We are not locked in. We do have choices and can shape our behaviors. He goes on to habit number 2, which he calls begin with the end in mind. And his suggestion is that people formulate their own unique personal mission statement, that we describe in writing who we are and who, even more, we want to be. What is our mission in life? What is our purpose in life? What is it that we want to accomplish? He suggests asking ourselves the question, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? Perhaps you would want to, Covey suggests, write your own obituary the way you would like it to be. What do you want to be known for? What do you want to have accomplished in your life? What kind of person do you want to be? What are the things that are absolutely essential to you that you want people to remember? Shape your daily behaviors with that kind of an end in mind. If, for example, your great purpose in life is to be a humanitarian, shape your daily activities with that purpose in mind. If your great purpose in life is to be known as someone who loves his family and is a good father, good mother to their children, then shape your daily purpose with that in mind, because it isn't going to happen accidentally. So, effective habit number 2 is to hold clearly in one's mind the end result, the outcome, and to do those things on a day-by-day basis which will contribute to that outcome. Effective habit number 3, Covey describes it as putting first things first. A professor gave a lecture in which he took out a glass jar and had a pile of rocks, big rocks, and a pile of smaller rocks, stones, and a pile of sand, and a pitcher of water. And he said to the class, watch what I do here. And so he put into the jar as many big rocks as the jar would contain. And he said to the class, is it full? People in the class said, yes, it's full. He said, watch this. And he put in now some smaller rocks, some gravel-sized rocks, and fit all those in around the big rocks. Then he said to the class, is it full now? Yeah, it's full now. But watch, he said. And he added to the jar sand, and he poured the sand in, and it fit itself around the big rocks and around the little rocks until the jar was full to the top. And he said to the class, is it full now? Yeah, now it's full. He said, just watch. And he poured from the pitcher of water into the jar until it was full up to the very top with water. And he said to the class, is it full now? Yes, they said, it's full now. He said, what's the moral of this story? Somebody in the class said, that there's always room to fit more stuff into life? No, he said, it is about life. It is about life. It's about how you use your life and the things that you do in your life. But the moral of the story is not that you can always fit more in. What's the moral of the story? And finally they got the point, and that is that you have to put the big rocks in first. If you start with the water and then the sand and then the gravel, and you'll never get the big rocks in. You have to put the big rocks into the jar first, and you have to put the big things into your life first. You have to fit into your life those things that are absolutely essential to you, those things that are a priorities of first importance, because if you put into your life those things that are not so important, you'll never be able to find the time for the big priority, big payoff items in your life. And Covey uses this as an illustration of how we need to put first things first in our lives. We need to make room in our lives for that which is most important to us and get those things in first before anything else. Effective habit number 4, Covey describes as think win-win. Now this is contrasted with I win, you lose kind of thinking that a very competitive person might engage in. I win, life is a zero-sum game. If I win, you have to lose. If you were to win, then I would have to lose, and I can't have that, so I have to win. It's also not the kind of thinking that other people engage in where they feel like they should always let other people have preference, and so their attitude is, I lose, you win, characteristic of the doormat who gets stepped on all the time, and oftentimes maybe would rather not try because he's afraid that he might fail. It's also not I lose, you lose kind of thinking, which is characteristic of the compromise, where they do what neither one really wants to do, so each of them gets a little bit of what they want, but nothing, all of what they want, and so in a sense, both people lose. But in this sense, it's we all win. Let's explore the options until we can find a way where we are all satisfied, where we all walk away from this feeling like it's a win for each of us. And if you can't find that option, then it's better not to play the game at all. Think win-win. Effective habit number 5. Seek first to understand, and only then to be understood. See, usually this is just exactly the opposite of what people do. People want to be understood, but they don't so much want to understand. If you're married, you probably know how this works already. But the idea here is to say to yourself, no, I am not going to attempt to have the other person understand me until I am sure that I have entirely understood the other person. And when I can understand the other person, and I have understood the other person so well that the other person says to me, yes, that's it, you've got it, that's exactly what I'm thinking, that's exactly what I'm feeling, then the problem is probably about 90% resolved. In order to do this, it requires that one listen, really listen to the other person, that we listen empathetically with not only our head, but also with our heart, that we listen clearly, not just for what is said, but for the meaning of what is said and what lies behind what is said. This is a kind of active listening that requires intense effort in order to truly understand. Effective habit number 6, to synergize. Synergy is defined as what happens when the whole becomes greater than the sum of its parts. For example, maybe you have already experienced a kind of synergy where a group of people start working on something and people start contributing ideas, and somebody else has another great idea and they toss that out and that stimulates somebody else's thinking, and the brainstorming is just going on and ideas are sparking off of each other, and it's an extremely productive time. And you realize that what was accomplished there in that group of people working together was far greater than anything that could have been accomplished by each individual working alone. That the people synergized each other. They stimulated each other and they played off each other in such a way that the energy between them created something that was far bigger than any one of them individually were capable of, or all of them individually were capable of. Now, in order for this to happen, it is required that there be some mutual trust and some understanding there. Synergy is a wonderful, wonderful thing that happens in the very best teams. I hope you've seen some synergy in the discussion forums as you have contributed ideas, classmates have contributed ideas, it's stimulated your thinking, and you find yourself doing better work than you've ever done before. Synergy creates amazing results. Another habit of highly effective people. They value synergy. And effective habit number 7, Covey calls it sharpen the saw. He tells a little story about somebody who came upon somebody who was trying to saw down a tree out in the woods, and the saw was dull. And they were working so hard, and they were sweating up a storm trying to saw this tree with a dull saw. And the person said, why don't you stop and sharpen your saw? And then you could go back to sawing this tree, and you'd accomplish so much more. And the person says, I don't have time to sharpen my saw. And the observer said, well, but if you would take the time to sharpen your saw, you would save so much time that it would more than pay for the time that you spent sharpening the saw. No, I don't have time. I'm too busy. It's taken too long to get this tree down. I have to keep working. Well, Covey uses this story to introduce the subject of sharpening the saw, which he says is an effective habit, a habit of highly effective people in which they recognize the value of pausing in their work in order to refine and hone their skills, to become better at what they do so that they work smarter and not just harder. Maybe it means taking a vacation. Maybe it means doing some continuing education. Maybe it means paying attention on a weekly or even a daily basis to spending a few minutes alone reflecting or meditating or praying so as to be more connected and more capable and better able to do what one wants to do. If you're interested in further study on this issue, of course, Stephen R. Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, is still in print. If you're looking for a short summary, the website here is kind of a Reader's Digest condensed version of Covey's book, and it's actually quite good.